So I want to point out a couple of other things here when it comes to friends with benefits. Most guys, I'm speaking a foreign language to them. Most guys don't get into these situations. At least 80% of guys don't get into these situations. I would, you know, it would be stupid for me to do this, but I would love to do a poll to see how many guys have actually been like in a friends with benefits relationship. And the reason it would be stupid is because somebody would, if I did it on Twitter or whatever, it would be inaccurate, but it would also be like, I'd also get these comments about only degenerate coomers are concerned with friends with benefits. Well, you're a fornicator. Are you telling guys to fornicate? Like no, dude, I'm just asking if people like, what's the actual frequency of friends with benefits situations. I remember when I first heard that, and I think it was on like Tom Likas or something like this. So this is like it's coming up internet. There was no social media at the time, but they were talking about like booty calls or friends with benefits or fuck buddies. I used to call them like booty calls. We used to call them booty calls, but like, you know, friends with benefits, whatever you want to call it. I didn't even hear that terminology till probably like the late 90s, early 2000s. Excuse me. But I'm wondering like what, especially for Generation Z, I'm wondering how many guys in Generation Z actually have friends with benefits. Like they get into like this sort of like comfortable fucking situation. Because it was kind of strange for me. I didn't even know something like that existed until I was in it. And I mean, I'm not going to say I didn't enjoy it, but I think there's this idea that that sex has to have some like cosmic meaningfulness. If you listen to, that's why I put the Jordan Peterson. Let me put this up real quick. That's why I put this in.
When I was in college, I broke up with 3 girls, I think, in the space of 6 months, something like that. They were
okay. Did you catch that? I broke up with 3 girls in the space of 6 months. So am I to believe, Dr. Peterson, that you were spinning 3 plates inside of 6 months? Because that seems like you were a fucking playa back then. If that's the case, were you fucking these girls, or was it just maybe not? I would love to get a little bit more detail on this, because I think a lot of this is just sort of grandstanding on his part, like trying to be relevant and hip. But maybe the math doesn't. Maybe you're right, Ashley. The math isn't mathing. It's not mathing for Peterson.
Relatively short-term relationships, you know, but they all ended the same way, more or less. And I don't even remember the details, but I thought, oh, that's.
I don't even remember the details. That's fucking convenient. You do remember that you had 3 of them inside of 6 months, but you don't remember the details. Do you remember the girls' names? Because I remember all my, well, more or less.
Them. That's me. And, you know, it took me a while to sort out what it was. Part of it was that I had a tendency to, this is very common. In fact, I'm sure it's overwhelmingly the norm.
I hate to say it, but he does the same thing I do, which is like you're in a thought, and then you come up with another thought, and it competes with that thought, and so you go with the other one, and people like lose track of the conversation. Like, where's he going with this?
Maybe women do this too. God only knows what women do. But I had a tendency to put any woman that I was attracted to on a pedestal, and that was hard on her.
So all 3 of these women that you had to break up with in the space of 6 months, you put on a pedestal. So was it that you broke up with them, or they broke up with you inside of that 6 months because you put them on a pedestal?
Her, and also, you know, put me in a demeaned position immediately, which was also not attractive, by the way.
Well, yeah, we got that. That's definitely oops, there we go. That's definitely bad news, right? I thought this was interesting because I never, like, somebody sent me this clip on Instagram, and I was like, wow, that's a side of Peterson I haven't seen. Again, I don't know if he's showboating, but like everything I've ever seen from him has been all about Tammy and just how she was like the most perfect chick at, you know, he met at 7 years old and he was going to marry her at 7 years old. And yet his MO, probably from the time he was like 7, was that he wanted to, well, marry this chick. But would it be safe to assume that he put Tammy on a pedestal too and just kept her there for the better part of her lifetime until she got to the point where it's like, okay, I guess he'll do. Let's do a brief, like, very unscientific poll here. Put a 1 in the chat if you think that Jordan Peterson was the best that Tammy could do, or she felt that he was the best that she could do at the time, like right before they got married. Because one of the reasons I think that the friends with benefits situation has sort of changed over the years, particularly in recent times, is because it seems like it's more tenable now than it was before. Because everything I've seen, like that woman who was in her 50s and she was talking about whether or not, women should get into friends with benefits situations. The main reason she said no is because, well, women will start to develop feelings. And even Jordan Peterson has been on record as saying, like, oh, there's no such thing as casual sex because you'll develop your cosmic energies will come together in confluences and shit like that. Or it'll be like, you can't have sex without there being some sort of emotion. And I heartily disagree. I can show you example after example after example of how this is simply not true. Because if you to porn, and 68% of Christian men admit to having a porn addiction. So if you the porn, is that not at least in some way compartmentalizing sex and emotion? It's not like you're like becoming emotionally involved with maybe with your OnlyFans girl, but it's not. But if you're the fucking Pornhub, guys have no problem separating the sex act, I should say, from an emotional investment. Women probably have a much more, I'm not saying women can't do it. There are plenty that do, right? But I think it's probably a little bit more difficult because of the investment cost of reproduction for women. So there has to be the emotional association with sex is also a survival adaptation. Their psychology when it comes to that, it's a survival adaptation. Because again, even if a woman made a right choice in our ancestral past, if she made the right choice of man, she could still die from that. If she made the wrong choice and the guy just and evacuates, then it's still like she's left with a kid and she is at a survival disadvantage because she made a bad decision. That's why women get so hyperactive when it comes to like trying to figure out if a guy is for real or not, because there's a primal instinctual level need to know that, because if he's not who he says he is, then essentially she's being, and then second of all, she could die from reproducing with a guy who's not going to stick around. So if that's the case, there has to be some sort of modern reason, modern rationale, modern methodology in which women will say, you know what, I'm going to put that off. I'm going to condition myself so that I don't have such an emotional attachment to these guys. And maybe I need to do that now because I'm the only one I can trust for my own personal security. Provisioning, protection, and parental investment, or long-term security. Women are dependent on themselves for long-term security right now. And if they can manage that and consolidate on that, what's left? Friends with benefits, fucking. They still want to fuck. Women definitely still want to have sex. So I'm not saying women don't have a more higher proclivity, let's say, to have an emotional investment in the sex that they're having. Men don't have that proclivity. We can get it. We can invest ourselves in it. We can certainly put them on pedestals, as Peterson was saying, but men innately see casual sex as a fucking net benefit because it's in our evolutionary reproductive, best interests to evacuate. That's why porn is such a big deal. How do I get unaddicted to porn, Rolo? Just stop off. That's how you turn off the porn. It's easier to not do something than it is to do something. Like, turn it off. Stop fucking stop playing with yourself and go fucking do something productive. Replace one bad habit with a better habit. Oh, I'm addicted to the dopamine. Okay, well then go and find some other pro-social, beneficial means of triggering that dopamine that doesn't involve snapping your radish. Okay? It's not that hard. Oh, you don't know what it's like, bro. You're old. I'm old enough to fucking know what I'm talking about. But the idea that sex has to be coupled with emotion. That's guys who don't fuck. That's what they say. Those are the words of the guys who don't fuck. Those are guys who are in sexual deficit. Or women who have a vested interest in locking a guy down for long-term security. So when I hear like Peterson, or I hear like some of these, there's too many to fucking list. So then guys talking about, oh, you need to have you Rolo, you just talk about meaningless sex. Let me explain something to you. I have meant to fuck every girl I ever fucked. Okay. I meant 100%. My heart was in it, every single one. Okay. Yes, that's the extent of meaningful sex. Okay. Is it great to have sex with someone you love? Yes, absolutely it is. Is it great to have hot monkey sex with some chick you're just really fucking hot for because everybody wants some? Yeah, it's like fucking pizza, man. It's good when it's warm and it's good when it's cold, you know? And just having that attitude, there's a difference in attitude, I know, from guys who fuck and guys who don't fuck. And again, the guys who are accustomed to the attentions of a lot of young women understand, I think, have a better understanding of female nature. Andrew Wilson, it's that experience side. It's understanding. Even if you like, here's the thing. When Andrew Wilson was talking, and this is no flame. I like Andrew. I consider him a friend. This is not a flame. But when I'm watching him and I'm watching Myron sort of have this back and forth about the 50 girls thing, the one thing I was just like screaming at the screen, I'm like, it's not that hard. It's not that hard to figure this out. It's if you have abundance, literally have the options, you're going to be more confident. It's not fucking rocket science. And so if you have, and even just because you have abundance of women doesn't mean you're fucking every single one of those women. So when it says, oh, well, do these random hoes, like they all have to be random, like, slovenly trolls, right? They're some of the women that I've had sex with in my 40 some odd, notch count. Some of them were not that great. A lot of them were fucking awesome, man. And just because they had sex with me and then had sex with other people after we broke up or whatever, that doesn't make her a fucking slut. It just makes her someone who enjoys sex. It just makes her, like, guys who fuck understand shit like this. Guys who don't think that any girl that spreads her legs on the first date or the third date or the ninth date is a slut. And that's simply not true. And you would know that if you were having sex with many women, or you just enjoyed the attention of many women. You don't necessarily have to be fucking women left and right, anything on two fucking legs, to understand the value added prospect of having women come around. High value men are orbited by gorgeous women. Whether they're sluts or they're high quality women is irrelevant to the conversation. They are markers of a high value guy. They're guys that other men want to be and other women want to fuck. Does that mean he's fucking all of those other women? No, but there are a lot of women that want to fuck him. And so therefore, yes, they do have intrinsic value, if for nothing else than being a cue and a marker of a high value guy. Very, very simple. Okay? But guys who don't fuck don't understand shit like that. The other part with friends with benefits is it's almost always a validational sex situation, because if it was the other way around, like, what do I mean by that? Transactional sex versus validational sex. Validational sex is the sex that women want to have. When I was in my rock star 20s, I was having nothing but fucking validational sex with women. Trust me on that, because I had no money. It wasn't the fucking big fat hairy bank account that I had. I didn't have jack shit. And I still got laid like fucking tile back then. So it wasn't about the money. It was, I was an experience that these women wanted to have at that fucking time. Great. Oh, Rolo sounds like he's glossing himself. You know why I sound like I'm glossing myself? Because today, guys wouldn't even think about doing that. Guys wouldn't even like, oh, it's got to be meaningful. Who's having meaningless sex? It's no such thing as meaningless sex. Sex is sex is sex is sex. Okay? How you apply you can apply meaning to it subjectively, but sex is fucking sex. There's the proximate, the intimate, and the validational. 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 There's the proximate, the intimate, outcome for sex and there's the ultimate outcome for sex. When I met Mrs. Tomasi, I didn't look at her and go,
I'm going to vet her for marriage. I wonder if she'd be a really great mother for my future children. What a great idea. I think I'll go and give her the 436 bullet point checklist, battery of questions. So see if she's a good future Mrs. Tomasi. I know. You know what I did? I just looked at her. I saw her tits. I saw her ass. I go, I want that. That's the proximate outcome. Yeah, I'm in there. Let's go, man. That looks like a fun fucking time. The ultimate outcome is we got married. We both were very much compatible. We both, were, of the same religion. We were both, everything worked out for us. Is there a little bit of luck involved in that? Absolutely. Is there a little bit of skill? I think the skill part comes from my being red pill and having a good, successful marriage for almost 28 years now. So when people say, oh, you can't find a quality woman at a bar, they're all skanks and hoes. No, I met Miss Tomasi, my 28, soon to be 20. Well, I've been with her over 28 years. My wife at one of those places. You're supposed to meet your wife at Barnes and Noble and Bible study. Dude, she can't be friends with benefit. The other thing is, I was reading some of these other studies on friends with benefits. Just because you're friends with benefits doesn't mean that it doesn't lead into something else. Sometimes it does. Sometimes there's situations and relationships and marriages that result as a friends with benefits situation. I think that might have been in the past, though. I think right now, friends with benefits, it's a solution to the problem that is women don't need men, but they want men. And what do they want? They want friends with benefits. They want someone they're comfortable with, that they know is safe, that they know they can fuck, that they enjoy every single time. But that's the end of the reciprocation. That's the end of their investment. And again, it really boils down to women being able to separate their emotional investment from the sex act itself. And that might sound very degenerate. That might sound like very dystopian. And you probably would be right about that. I will agree. But it is what it is. And that's where we're at right now with respect to marriages and with respect to relationships. That's why I said women want friends with better benefits, not marriages. Why am I saying that? Because when I was writing the outline for my most recent Substack, I got to thinking about this, and we tend to overemphasize men not wanting to get married, right? Oh, men think they're going to lose half of their stuff. That's why they don't want to get married. It's these red pill guys. They're the reason for the fertility rate being under replacement level that actually started in 1975. It must be those red pill guys that are dissuading men from getting married. Well, who's doing then? Why is it that women don't want to get married? Because there has to be two people. It's like it's this idea that there's just this fucking crowd of women in like fucking Wembley Stadium waiting in wedding dresses with a fucking bouquet to get married. But all these guys are like, no, we're not gonna. This is big army of guys that we're not gonna fucking get married. Those red pill guys told us not to. What fucking planet are you on? That doesn't fucking happen. And the reason why it doesn't happen is because women don't want to get married any more than guys want to get married. That's why the marriage rate is at 6.1 per 1,000 right now and declining even more than that. So when people tell me, oh, well, it must be those rebel guys that are like ruining the sexual marketplace, get the fuck out of here. It's been ruined for really since the sexual revolution got started, before anybody knew what a fucking red pill was, before the movies even came out. But yet we're supposed to believe that women are just like waiting for guys. And that's why I was saying that friends with benefits situations are actually probably more preferable than a modern marriage would be today, because of the is he the best I can do doubt that women have. So if that's the case, why is it that women don't want to get married? Ladies, please chime in. I'd be happy to take your super chats right now about this. Why is it that women don't want to get married? I already know. They don't want to get married because no guy is fucking good enough. They feel like they would be settling. Average women don't want to get with average men. In fact, they don't want to get with them. They think that they deserve above average men. And that's why I made the point in my recent essay is that only elite men
are eligible bachelors. Only guys who are above average, who are elite men, they're the only ones who could possibly maybe qualify by push past the threshold of, is he the best I can do? And I broke it down this way, as you know, and I'll explain once again, the 80-20 rule. 80% of men are the undesirables. They're the untouchables. They're the invisibles. They're, as Homath would say, not people. Then there's the 20%ers. Those are the guys who are not necessarily attractive. They're just not unattractive. And so those are the guys who I've called the qualifiers. These are the guys who might do, if they can in some way have something unique about them, something that gets an emotional rise out of them. If they're loyal to a fault, they make a lot of money. There's some value added prospect to them that sort of, they might not be the best that woman can do, but they have certain qualities and certain pluses and benefits that are value added prospects to that guy, that women will go, all right, I'll give him a shot. Right. And then there's the 4.5%ers. Those are the guys like Justin Waller, Jason Momoa, Jack Reacher. Like, those are the guys that women, the 4.5% of men that women want to initiate some sort of outreach and they want to fuck those guys. If they had a fuck buddy, that'd be the dude that they'd want to be a fuck buddy with. Actually, they would probably want to lock that guy down. So you've got the qualifiers, the 20%ers, you've got the high value men, which are the 4.5%ers, and then you've got the 80% guys who are the untouchables. Those are the unattractive guys, right? So there's 80%, 20%, and 4.5%. Of those guys, the people who are the guys who are the most fucked are the 20%ers, not the 80. The 80s know where they're at. Their whole life is either jerk off or find a way out of the 80%. And most of those guys don't care. They're like, I don't care. I'll wait for the sex robots. I'll wait for the meteor. I'll get a sex doll. That'll be the extent of my life. I'll never reproduce, and no one will care. And they'll be right. And then there's the 4.5%er guys who are the high value men who have their pick of the fucking litter, and they can fuck who they want when they want because they're rewarded with women's sexuality and their availability. Great. The 20%ers are the guys who are fucked because they're the ones that have to keep answering the same question over and over and over again. Is he the best I can do? And if the answer is ever no, that's a strike against you. And you probably heard this before. It's like 10, was it 1-0 fuck erases 10 attaboys. The same applies to the 20%er guys. They're the ones that have to keep qualifying and chasing their tail over and proving themselves, proving their quality to milady over and over and over again. Those are the guys who will pedestalize women. The 80%ers don't pedestalize women because they don't give a shit. The 4.5%ers, they don't pedestalize women because they're sport fucking, because they're guys who fuck. The 20%ers, those are the guys who pedestalize women because it's in their interest to do so, or like they believe it's in their interest to do so. So in that case, if you're in that situation as one of the 20%ers and you're constantly having to qualify, those are the guys that are average men that average women don't want to get with generally, unless there's some way that guy can put himself out above and compete with the other 20%ers to prove that has something going for him that's better than the other dudes, right? And that's where you get guys who get moralistic, because that's a 20%er, methodology to get women. There's the guys who say, you know what, doesn't matter, I'm going to make a shit ton of money. Those guys are the 20%ers because they lead with their wallet and they think that money is the key. Then there might be the looks maxers who are still the 20%ers, but they're going, you know what, I'm going to play to my strengths. I got a pretty good looking body. I don't make a lot of money. I'm still a bartender at fucking, the Win, but doesn't matter because chicks only want to suck my dick and they only want to have sex with me anyway. So I'm going to max out on my looks. Then there's the guys who are the game guys, who primarily just gross out. Most guys will gross out on whatever they think that their greatest strength is in that 20%. But really, all of them are doing the same thing: qualifying.